So we have a quote that we thought fit perfectly with what we're seeing. You can see it on the slide here. A permanent shift has taken place across the industry from a linear platform to a digital platform. So during the pandemic, we saw this shift in streaming that was accelerated with all of us being trapped at home and with an overabundance of content being served across multiple platforms. With this, we saw three key themes we're going to discuss today. Accelerated fragmentation is now the norm for both video and audio. Fragmentation occurs across devices and platforms. And finally, everything is impacted by fragmentation. So even things that used to be live appointment viewing has now been impacted. So this first chart comes from Nielsen, and it's illustrating the percent of TV time in January 2022. And although linear, which in this case is broadcast and cable, continue to make up the largest amount of time at 62%, streaming continues to be elevated at 29%, and it's spread out across various providers. It's important to keep in mind too that roughly 50% of streaming inventory is ad-supported. Initially, we used to think of streaming as mostly Netflix since it was the behemoth for a long time. But through the last few years, we've seen more providers enter the space, and we've also seen ad-supported inventory increase as a result. So something worth pointing out is the fact that everything is now being impacted by the streaming surge, even live sports. Digital live sports viewership is estimated to reach 73.9 million this year and 107.4 million by 2025. So on the right side, you'll see which large sporting events respondents were intending to watch through a streaming service. And one that we wanted to call out specifically is the Super Bowl because it's relevant time-wise. When the survey was fielded in December, 26% of respondents were planning to stream the Super Bowl. When the numbers were released by NBC, 11.2 million viewers streamed the game across 6 million devices. And this was up from 5.7 million streaming viewers in 2021. So obviously, as streaming options become available for live sports, it's proven that people will take advantage of the opportunity to watch. So we know more people are streaming, and I'm sure we're all aware of the ever-growing inventory that exists across platforms. SVOD, or subscription video on demand stacking, has continued to be the norm. About a year ago, the industry was discussing when consumers would reach a plateau, thinking eventually people would pull back on the number of subscriptions they have, but so far we haven't seen this happening at all. And SVOD stacking hasn't slowed. In this chart, we're looking at how many services people subscribe to and how this number has changed over time. So as of June, 57% subscribe to 4 or more SVOD services and 22% subscribe to 7 or more. And I sat down and started to count my own subscriptions. I'm definitely in the 7+ category, which I'm not sure how to feel about. But part of the stacking is because each platform continues to release original content, or it houses content that we've all come to love, like The Office. So it makes us feel compelled to subscribe to everything so we don't miss anything. So we've gone through some generic viewing trends, but we wanted to illustrate specific trends across various demos to understand how viewership is changing. In case this is your first time joining our annual trends presentation, the next 3 slides go through different age demos looking at trending year over year for TV viewing to understand the growth of OTT across generations. But before we get into the numbers, I think it's safe to take a step back and define how Harmelin talks about OTT, because it is a vague term used in the industry and you'll hear it used a little differently depending who you're talking to. So thought it was nice and safe to define what we're calling OTT, or over the top, and we're saying it's TV content that's delivered via internet by any method that bypasses your traditional cable or satellite set-top boxes. So this would include computers, phones, tablets, and any streaming TV devices. So the first demo we're looking at is the standard adults 25-54, and we're comparing second quarter year over year from 2019 to 2021. You can see time spent with OTT has almost doubled from 23% to 44%. And the next demo is a younger demo. It's adults 18 to 34. So you'd expect the OTT portion to be larger, which it is, but it's still seen a 20% increase in share of TV time from 2019 to 2021. So OTT is now accounting for more than half of all TV viewing for adults 18 to 34. And then finally, we wanted to show an older demo. So this is looking at 50 to 64. And when you think about this demo without the data, you might think that they're still watching linear TV, tuning into Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune nightly, which is absolutely the case, but they're also joining the streaming wave. OTT usage has gone from 12% up to 23% in 2021. This demonstrates that all age groups have been impacted by the streaming surge and have continued to see growth even after lockdown. So we just walked through accelerated fragmentation for video that we've seen throughout the pandemic, and now we're going to switch gears a little bit and move into audio. Most of this will mirror what we just saw with video. We'll see an increase in streaming, which is done across platforms and devices. And while the acceleration isn't occurring at the same rate as video, we'll see similar trends and behaviors. So this first chart represents the share of ear to understand how the audio landscape is divided into various segments. Looking at the latest share of ear, you'll see radio still makes up the largest portion at 40% for adults 18 plus. So this illustrates the idea that while streaming thrives, radio still survives and is the most listened to. And when comparing it to pre-COVID, radio has declined 4 percentage points at the expense of streaming and podcasts. So while 4% sounds pretty small when you're talking about numbers, you'll notice that streaming and podcasts, which is the green and light blue portions of this chart, now account for 1/3 of time spent listening, and this number is expected to continue to increase. And this obviously varies based on demo, similar to what we saw with video. So when we talk about streaming and podcasts, this involves all different audio platforms. If we look at some of the top streaming services and look at the average minutes per listener, you'll notice some have experienced decreases from pre-pandemic through now, but what stands out the most is the increased average time spent many platforms have seen. So for example, Pandora has seen a 19% increase from December 2019 through December 2021, iHeart 23%, but the largest all the way at the bottom you'll see was Spotify with 170%. So it's clear that Spotify is winning the streaming audio war when we look at average time spent. But something that's worth keeping in mind is those subscribing to premium or ad-free content versus those that can be reached through advertising. And according to Spotify's Q4 2021 press release, 58% of monthly active users were ad supported, so a little more than half. And when it comes to incorporating streaming audio into media mixes, planners have to look at not only what platforms their targets utilize, but also keep in mind how much ad-supported content or impressions are available within that demo. So the other piece influencing fragmentation is device usage. According to eMarketer, audio listening through smart speakers increased 25% from pre-pandemic to now, and is anticipated to increase an additional 14% through 2023. Mobile phone usage has seen similar growth with 17% versus pre-COVID and an additional 16% anticipated through 2023. What we're seeing is a shift in behavior because of the pandemic, but many of us have been home for an extended time. We've created new routines, so we're not really planning on changing too much. And also time spent with audio in general has increased. So what does this all mean? Due to accelerated fragmentation, media plans require a balanced approach. So while linear TV and over-the-air or terrestrial radio maintain heavy usage, streaming continues to grow on both the audio and video side. A balanced approach is needed across platforms and devices in order to follow the audience wherever they're consuming audio and video content. And that leads us to our next point of utilizing a consumer-centric approach. Consumption varies greatly by audience and demo, so it's imperative to make data-informed decisions to employ the optimal mix of screens and speakers. And then finally, when looking at specific vendors and determining appropriate impression levels, it's necessary to understand the ad-supported inventory available. This will help determine streaming allocation decisions.